Have you ever wanted to really develop your Camtasia skills? Or perhaps if you already use Camtasia, would you like to get your level up to say an intermediate or even advanced user? I've built a 6-part course that will take you through Camtasia, through everything in Camtasia, and take you right up to an advanced level. My name's Russell Stannard. I've been using Camtasia since 2006. I've won several awards for my work building educational videos, and these days I build educational videos for a variety of clients. Perhaps the best known client of mine is National Geographic. This video is going to start to look at some of the basic editing features, the ones that I most commonly use when I make a video. If you're looking for another part of the course, I'm going to put a link to the 6-part playlist and you can access the different parts of the course. I'll also put the playlist in the description below, and along with that playlist there's a link where you can download and test Camtasia for 4 weeks for free. Really hope you like the course, and thank you very much. Please like, subscribe and comment on the videos. Thank you. So the whole idea of this video is to take you through the editing features that I most like. So you've already done your screen recording and you've already got all your media ready. You're putting your media onto your timeline, and then what are all the different things that you do? And the first one that we're going to look at is the cursor. So here I've got all my videos ready, and I'm just going to start by bringing on a couple of the videos. So part 1 onto the screen, and then part 2 onto the screen. And obviously what I would do normally is actually I'd bring all of the videos on. So let's just bring on a few more, because I normally do this all in one go. So I've got, let's say that this whole course or this whole video is going to be 5 different sections. Now at the moment you can see that the cursor is not actually marked. You can see the cursor moving around, but the actual cursor on the screen, it's not actually got any highlighting tool. And so how do we bring the highlighting tool onto the cursor? Well, what we do is, and I'm going to hold my mouse down, select all of the videos. I then come over to the cursor effects. Now we've got a lot of options. The solid one, the one that I still use the most though, is to drop this cursor onto that whole section. And because I've selected all of them, you'll now see that the cursor is on all, and there it is. You can see the cursor here. Now the other thing that we can do with that cursor, again I'm trying to keep it to all the things that I really do, is that I reduce that to about an opacity of about 60, an opacity of about 60, 59, 60, just put it up just slightly, okay? Simply because sometimes people still want to read what's underneath. So that's a really big factor. And the other thing that I sometimes do is just slightly increase the size of it. Okay, and you can do that. It depends, but sometimes I do increase the size of the cursor. Now the result of that is, if I just pull you can now see that the cursor is moving around on the screen, and it's really clear to see it. Okay, now just a couple of things about that cursor. You can change the color of it as well. So you could click on the cursor and choose to use another color. And you can actually choose from the color picker here. You could literally choose any color you want. So let's say, for example, I'm going to click up here, and then I'm going to choose to make it sort of this color here, let's say. And then as you can see, it's updated, or perhaps I want to use this color, etc. Let's say I want to do it in a kind of, and you can see that the cursor is updating, and now it's a completely different color. Now in reality, I must admit, I tend to use a sort of yellowy color, a nice bright color. I tend to find that they work the best. Okay, so you can see there, green or yellow, so that they're always much easier to mark. One thing to always remember when you're working with Camtasia, you can always click on this back button. So if I wanted to go back to the original one that I produced, I can always click back and find my way back to the nice bright yellow cursor that we've got on the screen now. Now the next thing that I'm going to show you is something that's actually just been introduced into Camtasia 2022. I'm very impressed with it. I've started using it already, and it's when we're working with basically, let's come over to the library and I'll really give you a nice example. So I come over to the media library. I'm just going to drag this image onto the screen. So this is an image of my website. You'll notice actually that image is smaller than the canvas, but I can right click and I can scale to fit. And so because it's actually the same ratio, it fits really nicely. Now if you just play this video and I just scroll across it, you'll see that there's no cursor on it. And that would have been a problem in the past, but now what we can do is come to cursor, and then we're going to just click on cursor path, and we're going to drop that cursor on, and it actually creates a cursor. Now there's quite a few things that we can do with this, and just to start with, the first thing I'm going to point out as well is you can actually make that cursor a little bit bigger, and I'm going to do that just so it's nice and clear. Okay, so I'm just going to increase the cursor scale. All you need to do is, once you've dragged the cursor on, if you haven't got it selected, just select the cursor properties and then you can scale it. Okay, really useful. Now the next thing you can do is that if we play that, so you can just see how the cursor goes. Okay, great, but you can see it's only kind of animating for a little distance. What I can do is actually say, well, I want the animation to start here and I want the animation to end here. So now we've got a lot longer animation, or it's taking place across the whole of the period that image is on the screen. Remember, I can even make an image stay on the screen for longer if I want, and I could stretch that out. It would be really slow now, moving across. Let me just show you. So it would start there, the animation starts straight away, and you can see it's moving very slowly, okay? But just to understand that, you know, however long the image is on the screen for, you can make the animation go across that period of time. Now, there is a lot more though that we can do. We can actually redirect this path and make it fit perfectly to what we want it to point out on the screen. And then what I could do is add the commentary after, which is exactly what I did in a very recent video. So let me show you that now. Now I just want to show you what I've done. I've added some cursor points along this pathway, and therefore I've now edited this path. I'm just going to play it to you. I'm going to show you how I did it. Now I don't know if this is the perfect way to do it. This is the way that I've worked out. So if I'm just going to click and play it to you, so it goes along here because I want it to do that first, then I want it to drop down here because I want it to tell it to sign up to the newsletter, then to tell me about my courses, then finally to telling me about my YouTube channel. Okay, that's the plan. How did I do that? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to undo how I did that. So I'm just going to do that here, click back. Always a useful button to know that you can use, and I might not be doing this the right way, but I'm going to show you how I did it. I move the playhead along to a certain distance, and I say, well, about here. Okay, I want to add a new cursor point, so I'm going to right click, add cursor point. Okay, and then I'm going to move along. I always do add the cursor points first, along to about here. So again, about, you know, and then add another cursor point. Okay, and then I've got my final one. So now I need to set out the route. So the route's going to be, first I want it to go right along that whole kind of area here, because I want to talk about this. Then the second thing I want to do is I want to pop down here and talk about signing up to my course. In fact, I'm going to need another cursor point, so I'm going to move along a bit further, and about here I'm going to add a cursor point here, right click, and this one is going to talk about signing up to my newsletter. And then my last cursor point here, just going to grab it, is going to drag and come up here. Okay, that's the way that I do it. And then look at this. This is something else quite clever. I can sort of adjust these slightly if I think, well, that's going a bit too long from there to there. So I can kind of adjust these. So it seems really flexible, this system. I'm sure I'm probably not doing it super professionally, but this is the way I've worked out. Let me just play that back and then I'm going to show you some more tricks that you can do. So I'm just going to play that path back to you now. So we've got it all nicely planned out. I like that, like it's talking along there, then down to here, talking around that, then over to here, and then finally up to there. Okay, now I'm just going to bring this back along, and I think I'm going to need to extend all of this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull that right out, and then I'm going to pull out my cursor path, make that much longer, because I'm going to need time to talk between each spot. Okay, I might be being a bit ambitious, but hopefully this should work out. Okay, now I'm just going to try a little trick here. I haven't used this much, but for me here it would be quite interesting. I'm going to select this point here. Okay, so I've got it selected. What I want is, I want this to be like an angle along here, because I want it to go straight along here, but then I want it to curve around because I want it to be more relaxed on that part. And I'm looking at these options, and if I roll over them, I've got convert selected point to angle in and curve out. That seems to be the right one. So let's give that a bash and see if it works. I'm going to click on it. Whoa, lovely. So now I've got that nice smooth line along there, which I want, and then I want it to curl round. So let's have a look now at the result of this. Let's see. Nicely across, or like that. Down, that's good. And then over to here where I'm talking about signing up to the newsletter, and then up to the YouTube. Okay. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. It might need to be a bit longer, so I'm going to stretch it out a little bit further. So I'm going to make the image a little bit longer, and then I'm going to pull this out just a little bit longer, okay? So that I've got each thing's got a little bit more time, because I'll need to add the commentary. And that's what we're going to do now, is we're going to look at how we would add the commentary to this pathway. Please like, subscribe and comment on the videos. Thank you. Now what I want to do is add voice narration. So if you click on your on the menu system, you should have voice narration, or if not, click on more and you'll find it. When you open it up, make sure that you set the correct microphone that you want to use. So I want to use my Blue Yeti mic. Make sure your playhead's back to the beginning. I always mute the audio on the timeline while I'm doing the recording. And the idea is that basically you're going to follow along with what you're doing and add your commentary. So let me just show you how simple this is, and then we can talk a little bit about how to make it even better. But I just want to show you the basics of doing this. So I'm going to click on this button now. Don't forget, you can choose any of the menu items at the top of the screen. You can also look at my courses. Please don't forget to sign up to the newsletter. And last of all, you can follow me on YouTube. Stop. Click on save. And now that audio has been added. Now there is always a little thing, because it normally takes a while for the audio to start, particularly for me today, because I'm kind of doing a screen capture of a screen capture. So it's using up a lot of processing power on my computer. So the first thing I'm going to do is kind of cut the beginning of the audio off, because probably for the first sort of half a second nothing was recorded. So just going to select that new channel, the audio channel, click on cut and just delete that. Just clicking on that piece of empty audio and just deleting it, and then I'm going to move this audio along. So let's play that back now and just see what that's like. So let's see if that's worked. I'm just going to play it back. Don't forget, you can choose any of the menu items at the top of the screen. You can also look at my courses. Please don't forget to sign up to the newsletter. And last of all, you can follow me on YouTube. Okay, so that's worked pretty well. There's a lot of things I could do to improve that, and I'm going to show you now some of them, how you could do that much more professionally. It would kind of mean going to a slightly higher skills level, but there are loads of things that we could now do to really make this much more engaging and easier for the basically for the viewers to follow. So let's just have a look at some of the improvements we can make. I'm going to select that audio file and delete it again. I'm going to do the whole thing again now, and I'm going to show you some extra tricks. I'm going to click here, and I'm going to click back on edit path. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add now onto that edit path another point. And the first one that I want to add is here. I want to kind of hang around here for a little while. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another point just about there. So we'll just kind of keep it, okay? So we're going to just make sure that we're clicking at that point there. Going to click and right click and add a cursor point there. So we've got 2 points in, and I'm going to move that one out a little bit. So that basically the cursor is going to be kind of hanging around at that point for a little while before it zooms off to the next one, okay? And I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to add a cursor point, another one here. Okay, so, sorry, I got that wrong. Let me just come back again, click on the cursor. No, so here, come here, I'm going to add another cursor point. So I'm going to right click, add cursor point. Same thing, I'm going to have it hanging around in that area for a little while, okay, before it zooms off. And then what I might do is I might make that longer. Now let's just play that back and see whether or not it works. So now zooms across the screen. That's fine. Comes down, hangs around a bit while I chat, then zooms off, hangs around while I chat, and then okay, now that is definitely going to work a lot better. So now let's add the narration now. So let's add the commentary. Don't forget to click on any of the menu items at the top. You can also look at any of my courses that are currently open. Please sign up to the newsletter. And finally, of course, you can follow me on my YouTube channel. Click on stop, click on save. Remember, there's always that little bit at the beginning that we need to kind of delete off. So we'll just get rid of that, just the first few seconds. Just doing that from here. Just delete that completely, move the playhead back. And then let's play that back now and see if that's worked. Don't forget to click on any of the menu items at the top. You can also look at any of my courses that are currently open. Please sign up to the newsletter. And finally, of course, you can follow me on my YouTube channel. Okay, now that's a lot better. So just adding in those new points and then not moving the cursor much in those points works really well. We could even improve it even further, but I'm quite happy with that. What I might do now, and I'm going to just show you one example, is that I might start to add some other elements. So the first thing that I'm going to do to add another element is I'm going to come up here and I'm going to have a drawing around this area while I'm talking about this part. So I'm going to use this one here, okay, sketch motion, and I'm going to drag the sketch motion onto the screen and just make sure it goes right across and probably make it a little bit narrow. Let's just see how that works. Let me just show you that in action now. So if I click on the video, don't forget to click on any of the menu items at the top. You can also look at any of my courses. So I could do the same thing here now. If I wanted, I could add another item, or what I might do here if I wanted to is perhaps even just have an arrow pointing, okay? And I might bring that in a little bit earlier. So I'm going to move it back just a bit here, okay? So let's just now watch that, see if that works. Don't forget to click on any of the menu items at the top. You can also look at any of my courses that are currently open. Please sign up to the newsletter. Again, I could do the same here, so I might just shorten that just slightly because now we're talking about the newsletter. So I'm going to bring on this one here just to draw around it. Remember, when you're doing this as well, you can, if you do it though, make sure you do it to all of them. I'm going to click on 1, 2, 3. Let me just select all 3. And I'm just going to slightly increase the thickness, make the drawing just a bit clearer, make it 7, okay? So let's just play it back from here so you can see what happens. So look at any of my courses that are currently open. Please sign up to the newsletter. And finally, of course, you can follow me on my... And then that one again, I'm going to have to make a bit shorter because I've already started. In fact, sorry, I've got them all selected. So deselect them, select just that one. And you might want to make it a little bit shorter and maybe get it starting a little bit earlier. Okay, because I'm just about to start talking about YouTube now. So then perhaps here, I'm going to have my final one on the screen, okay, to add on about the YouTube. So you could get the idea. You can really improve and make these very professional. Remember, you've always got the option of extending the time. If you need a bit more time, extending the time. And if you click and then click on edit the path, you can also extend the path as well. I really like the way that the path editing works with the Camtasia 2022. I found it very easy to kind of get to grips with and to use it really effectively. One of the other things that you might not realize about these sketch motions is that you can actually control the time. So if we come back to this first one, and we come over here, you can notice here you've got the thickness, of course you've got the color, so you can change the color if you wanted to have a different color. I'm not going to do that, so I'm going to undo that change. But notice also that you can speed up the draw time or slow it down. So if you're kind of in a rush to get something drawn onto the screen because perhaps you're coming to the end of the video, and this would be a perfect example here at the end, what we can do is we're probably going to have to slightly change a couple of these. I'm going to start with this one. I'm going to just click on that one there and reduce the draw time down a little bit. So I'm going to make it just 5 seconds. And then I'm going to do the same with this one. I'm going to bring this in a bit tighter, and I'm going to reduce the draw time of this one also. I'm just kind of showing you some of the options you've got when you're trying to get things exactly the way you want them. So perhaps, for example, I move that one a little bit along and I bring that one in there. Let's just have a quick look at that and see whether that's improved the speed now of the videos. Please sign up to the newsletter, and finally, of course, you can follow me on my YouTube channel. There we are, and you can see that that worked perfectly. It's a matter of playing around with the controls, but the great thing about the way that Camtasia works is that you can easily click on an object and then come over to the right hand side and see all of what we call the properties that that particular object has, and the properties that you can actually change. So for example, with this particular one, straight away you've got the thickness, you've got the draw time, there's a couple of other things you can do with flipping the way that the arrows pointing, for example, and of course you can change the color. So really useful to be aware of the properties that are available with each of the different functions that we've got available in Camtasia. One of the other things that you might not realize about these sketch motions is that you can actually control the time. So if we come back to this first one and we come over here, you can notice here you've got the thickness, of course you've got the color, so you can change the color if you wanted to have a different color. I'm not going to do that, so I'm going to undo that change. But notice also that you can speed up the draw time or slow it down. So if you're kind of in a rush to get something drawn onto the screen because perhaps you're coming to the end of the video, and this would be a perfect example here at the end, what we can do is we're probably going to have to slightly change a couple of these. I'm going to start with this one. I'm going to just click on that one there and reduce the draw time down a little bit. So I'm going to make it just 5 seconds. And then I'm going to do the same with this one. I'm going to bring this in a bit tighter, and I'm going to reduce the draw time of this one also. I'm just kind of showing you some of the options you've got when you're trying to get things exactly the way you want them. So perhaps, for example, I move that one a little bit along and I bring that one in there. Let's just have a quick look at that and see whether that's improved the speed now of the videos. Please sign up to the newsletter, and finally, of course, you can follow me on my YouTube channel. There we are, and you can see that that worked perfectly. It's a matter of playing around with the controls, but the great thing about the way that Camtasia works is that you can easily click on an object and then come over to the right hand side and see all of what we call the properties that that particular object has, and the properties that you can actually change. So for example, with this particular one, straight away you've got the thickness, you've got the draw time, there's a couple of other things you can do with flipping the way that the arrows pointing, for example, and of course you can change the color. So really useful to be aware of the properties that are available with each of the different functions that we've got available in Camtasia. Now, Camtasia 2022 has introduced a new draw feature, one of the many elements that has been added to the library. And I'm going to show you this in action. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag an image of my website onto the screen. So it's going to drag that on. One good thing about when you're working with website images is that you can kind of drag them out. Any image, you can make it longer or shorter. So I'm just going to drag out the period of time that it stays on the screen. And if it's the wrong size, what also you can do is right click and scale to fit, and that will make sure that the image fits onto the canvas. And because this particular image was the right ratio, it fits onto the canvas perfectly. Now if we come down to the library, and you can see there's all sorts of different library options now that we can work with. The one that I'm going to focus on here is called Expressive Animations, and I'm going to come down, I'm going to look at these hand draw tools. Now as I've said, I've already used this a couple of times. The one that I've actually used so far is this one here with the pencil line combo. You can use it to underline things, and I'm just going to give you an example. I could drag that onto the screen. Don't worry, at the beginning you'll need to work out where you want to line it up. So drag it onto the screen, see where it draws, and then what you can do is just, okay, so you want it to go under there. Now you're probably not going to want it quite so big, so you're going to need to kind of scale down the size of the animation. And then what you can see now, okay, let's say I wanted to emphasize sign up to my newsletter, then suddenly I've added that onto the screen. And if we play that, okay, I really like that feature. I like that pencil effect, and I can see that working really well. So for example, let's say you wanted to emphasize these key points here at the top where you've got various kind of menu items. Again, you might want to drag that onto the screen. You're going to need to kind of play it and then position it where you want it to be. So get it right into the right place. So right underneath the image there. In fact, I might not even want to adjust the size of that. Again, if I was, say, perhaps commenting on the menu items here, if we now played that video, let's take the other one off the screen at the same time just so that we don't get too confused. And now if I play that video, you'll notice that you can do that. Now here's a lovely trick, and this is exactly what I did in my video. Remember, we can change the colors of these objects. We have the properties. So if we, for example, click on that image on the screen and come over to here, we can see the properties. We can open them up here on the right hand side. Now notice we can change the color of the pencil and also the line. Now I'm just going to show you an example. I'm going to click here. I'm going to choose this, and then I'm going to click on here because I want it to match the color that's already on my website. And now you'll see that that draw tool, let's just play it. Okay, now of course what we can do as well is change the color of the pencil, exactly the same thing, so that the pencil is also the same color. And it's those little touches that can really help your video to look professional, because you can balance all the colors up and use colors in the elements of the video, or use colors connected to your own logo and the color scheme that you use for your particular company. Now another tool that again I use a lot, and I can again make an example from this picture of my website, is that often you need to blur things. You don't want certain pieces of information to appear on the screen. That could be images, particularly for example when I'm making videos that include images of children. It may be email addresses, it may be even things like bank account numbers, private information that I want to hide from the viewers. And there are actually quite a few options in Camtasia to do this. And what I also like about these options is that they again have properties that you can change. So let's delete the animation that we just added onto the screen. And what I can do as well, it's can always, if I want to make the screen smaller so that I've got more space to work on the timeline, I'm just going to click on that image and then I'm going to delete that completely. Now, what I want to do this time, I'm going to come back again. We're going to need to open this right up. Let's imagine that we needed to blur this area here. Let's say that we didn't want this information to be available. Do we have that option? Well, definitely we do. If we come over to here, click on Annotations, that's where we want to click. And then the one that you want to click on, if you come up to the top here, you'll see one that's called Special. Now there are actually a couple of options, so let's look at them both. We'll start with the actual blur tool. So you've got the blur tool over here, and I'm going to drag that onto the screen. Now why I like the blur tool in some ways is because you can, again, you can position it and get it the right size. In fact, it's probably quite good anyway at the moment. Like, I'm going to blur it just a little bit. Going to make that blur tool just the area just a little bit smaller. I don't need to make it quite so big. There we are. Okay, so that's the first thing that I can do, is that I can blur any information on the screen. A little tip here: if you're having trouble working, lock the screen below. So I'm going to lock that line so that now you can only work with the blur tool. You can't move what's underneath, something that I always forget to do, but it's a real handy tip. Okay, so I'm happy with that. Now, just like I've said on other objects, if we click on that object, notice that you've got properties, certain properties. Now, one of the properties is the amount that you blur. So you can, for example, reduce that right down. Just make it so that it can't be read, but it still blends in with the video. I find that tool really useful. I often have to make use of it. Now, you do have the option also of pixelating rather than blurring. Just a little clever tip as well, not one that I've often used, but I have seen it done in other Camtasia videos. You can actually invert that blur. So if you only want this part visible but not the rest of the screen visible, you do have the option of inverting, and now everything else is blurred apart from the text. That can be really good, and there are some really nice examples if you want to focus on certain part of the text. For example, let's say your video screening a text and you just want to focus on this particular part of it. You can blur all the text in the background and just make readable that particular element, and that can work quite well. So let's delete that blur off the screen, okay? And of course, one thing to point out, of course, you can make the blur last on the screen for a longer period or for a shorter period. In this case, it's probably likely that I'd want the blur on all of the time while that image is on the screen. That's something you've got to kind of work out, how long you want it on the screen for, but you've got that control. We're going to delete that, and we're going to now work with the option of not the blur tool, but the pixelate tool. Now, if I come up to the top here again, I'm in the special section here. So I'm on annotations, and then I'm in special. And this time I'm going to use pixelate. Now, it works in a kind of similar way. You can drag it onto the screen and pixelate anything. Now, let's say I want to pixelate an image. And I think sometimes it's when you're working with images that you might want to use pixelate rather than blur. So what you can do is drag that image over, drag the pixelate over the image. You can try to position it as well as you possibly can as well, so that it's just pixelating the area that you need pixelated, okay? And then again, if we click on that object, we've got the properties. Remember, your properties are here. You can open or close them, and again we can increase or decrease the pixelation. So for example, if we want the image underneath to be visible but not too visible, we may, for example, reduce the pixelation slightly, okay, and that way then that image is pixelated but not completely. People can kind of see that it blends in with the rest of the website. Both of those tools really useful, and again, this one you can extend the pixelation to last for a certain period of time. Again, it's a tool that I really make a lot of use of. Now, obviously, one of the things is the video that you're actually watching has been made in Camtasia, and therefore you're seeing within the video itself many of the features that I work with, and one that you've been seeing or experiencing right throughout this video is this ability to focus in and out on the screen. And again, we can use this example from my website by using this website image. So I'm just going to click here and delete that pixelate, so we've got a nice clean screen. And what I want to show you is how this tool works. Now, let's imagine that we are in the video and we get to this point here and we're suddenly talking about something else on the screen. Let's say, for example, let me just drag this out a little bit. Let's say that we're suddenly talking about signing up to my newsletter. So I want to bring the focus to this area. Now what I can do is I can come down, so I've got to choose the right point where I want to start. I can come down here and then I can click on the animation tool. Now the interesting thing about the animation tool is you've got some really nice control over how it's going to focus in on an area. Watch this. I can now move it, so I'm going to zoom in, okay? And then what I can do is I can zoom in up to a maximum of 200%. I can then focus where I want that to be. So I'm going to say, right, I want it to be just there. So now you can see that we're really focusing on this area. I can bring it into the middle if I want to, but it doesn't look so good in this particular case because we're right at the side of the video, so I probably wouldn't do that. But what I would then do is play it and then choose the moment wherever it is. Let's say that I finished talking about signing up to the newsletter. Now pause and then click on scale to fit and it will zoom out. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to play that back and you're going to see how effective this zoom tool is. So let's play back that video. So we're going to move the playhead back just a little way so you can watch it in action. So obviously we're full screen here and you can see the whole of my website, but watch what happens in the video as we get to this point. In it zooms, keeps the focus in that particular area while I'm talking about it, and then as I stop talking about it, it zooms back out again. Really like that feature, and it's one that you see me using all the time. Now a little tip about using that feature is that you can combine it with other features, but be careful. What is a good idea, and let's work on one together, is if we, for example, we're going to zoom in at a certain point. So in it zooms, stop it. Let's imagine now that we want to have a draw feature around here, or we want to focus in around here. Make sure that you do the additional element before you zoom back out again, because otherwise it's not going to work properly and you get really caught out. So just from experience, and I'm going to show you a lovely example of how you can do this, and we're going to introduce a new feature now as well. We're going to come back again up to annotations. Again, we're going to click on the special, and this time though we're going to use one that is called Spotlight. So watch this. So we've zoomed in, but I really want to focus in on this sign up to the newsletter. So not only am I going to do that, but now I'm going to spotlight it. Okay, and what I'm going to do, make sure that the spotlight only stays on the screen while we're zoomed in. The spotlight will disappear before we zoom out. Now let's just see if I've done that okay. If I haven't, I can always make the spotlight longer or shorter, so there's no problem there. Watch this effect. Just point out one thing as well with the spotlight. If I just click on it, again, we do have some settings here, and one of them is, let me just move the playhead back over again, we can increase the intensity and really darken the area in the background. Now again, this is an effect that I have used a few times, but I have seen other people doing it in their videos. Let me now play this video and you can see the combination of zooming in but then using another effect, ending that effect, and then zooming back out again. It works really well. Now obviously in reality you probably have commentary going on the screen. I didn't want to have the commentary just to keep it really simple so you could focus in on exactly what I'm doing. Now you can take this even further. There are some very sophisticated things that you can do by combining different behaviors together, and we will look later at some of these options, but that is a technique that I use quite a lot when I'm working. And of course what we can try and do as well, if we just zoom in a little bit more, is that we can kind of align the spotlight so that it just disappears before we zoom back out again. So if I played that now, you'll notice that the animation starts, in we go, zoom comes on, zoom goes off, and then back out again. Sorry, not the zoom, the spotlight comes on. So we've got the animation followed by the spotlight, and then spotlight out, and then back out again. And that can work really well. And as I've said, We could take that to another level, and I will later on in this course look at starting to combine behaviours and look at some of the techniques that we can use. So it is very much a case of, with these different types of assets that you can add to your video, is to think of adding the asset, deciding where you want to add it, and then looking at the properties that are available for you to control. The next thing that I want to come on to now is annotations. And again, the same thing. Where do we want the asset on the screen? And then what properties do we want to set? Now we can keep working with this same theme. So I'm just going to move the or increase the size of the timeline here for a minute while I just delete a few things. I'm going to delete that spotlight tool, so I'm going to click on it and then press delete. And I can notice this, I can click on any animations and also delete those animations. So the focus animation I'm also deleting, okay? When I refer to the focus animation, actually it's called, if we click on it, it's called animations. And if we click here, that's the name of the tool. I always call it the focus tool because that's exactly what it does. It kind of focuses in, but in reality, the name of it actually is the animations tool, and you're zooming in to different parts of the screen. Anyway, let's now move on to the next thing that I want to look at, and this is the one that you probably notice I use everywhere. If you're a follower of any of my website material, my YouTube channel, you'll see that I'm using this all the time. I'm going to show you various ways of using this particular tool. So we're coming up again to animations, to annotations, but this time in the annotations we're choosing a different tool. We're going to work on here these tools here. Now, one thing is, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just slightly push the level at this point a little bit higher and just show you a couple of things. So let's imagine, for example, again, that I'm talking about signing up to the newsletter. What I can do, and this is a really nice one that I use all the time. So I'm in annotations and I'm choosing here from the kind of standard basic annotations that are available. I'm going to drag that onto the screen. And then I'm going to, again, what I can do here is just lock this screen, so I'm not doing anything on that screen, just going to work on this one. And then what I'm going to do is move this, and I notice that I can do this as well. I can point that there. I can make this bigger, so I'm going to increase the size, and then just double clicking on the screen, I'm going to write please sign up. Okay, so just simply write in on the screen. Now, just like all of the different assets that we add onto the screen, we can decide where we want it to start and where we want it to end, and of course if we want, we can increase the period of time that it stays on the timeline. So let's just have a look at that. And that comes onto the screen like that. Now, this is where I want to just kind of start to introduce a few more concepts. First of all, we know that we can change the properties of that particular object that's on the screen. And if we come over here on the right hand side, clicking on that object, we can see all various different things that we can do, including even change it for a different type of kind of bubble or arrow, etc. So for example, I could put that as a thought bubble. Okay, that would be another possibility if I wanted to. Remember, if I want to undo that, just click over here and it will come back. I could, and I sometimes do, change the color. Again, this might be a perfect opportunity for me to combine with another element on the screen, so we've got exactly the same colors. Again, something that I often do. I do even have the option of coming back to the text, and I can, for example, double click on that text and change it for a different text. So I may click down here and you've got tons and tons of options. Let's just choose a simple one, Arial black, and then now that's Arial black. Of course, you can play around as well with the size and the positioning, so you know, you can kind of move it around on the screen and get it to the right place. That in itself is really useful. You notice that I do that all the time. It's not a new feature, this one. It was in previous versions of Camtasia. It still means to, even though it's 2022 version now, it's still something that I use a lot. Now we're going to delete that one off the screen, And we're going to bring another one on, another one that I often use. Let's say this is something I do all the time. Say I'm introducing my website. The first thing I'm going to do is at a certain point is drag on this particular asset. It's a kind of call out, but this one's with an arrow, and I'm going to put www.teachertrainingvideos on the screen.com so that people know my website address. And again, I would often drag that out so that it's on the screen for quite a long time. Now for me, this is where things start to get really interesting. We will come back and look at this topic a little bit later on. We've kind of touched on it even in some of the videos that we've been, or some of the training we've done even up until now. But what I want to show you is that we can combine using different assets and different elements, different behaviors on the screen. So at the moment, if I just play this video, on it comes, and then of course it will disappear at the end. It will just, again, just very simple, play the video and then bang, it disappears. Not very exciting in terms of the way it's come onto the screen. But what about if I did this? I come down to behaviors. Now the one that I like personally and I use all the time is the sliding one, and I drag that onto that particular asset. Now I'm just going to move in a little bit closer and just make that a little bit shorter. Watch what happens. Now, I'm going to play that video. It's a completely different experience. And then again, it's going to disappear. Now, again, we've got lots of options here. So we've combined now two elements, basically. One is, first of all, we've added what I call a call out onto the screen. It's one of the annotations, okay? And then I've added a behavior, and the behavior that I've added is a slider. So if we come over to the properties, we've actually got several little boxes at the top here because we have a behavior, but we also have an asset. Now let's just change a couple of things about that asset first. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change the color of it to match the color of this little box here, or this little button here. Secondly, if you watch the video carefully, you'll notice that it comes on and off the color, okay? I don't like that. So what I can do is go to the animation, and this is really clever. I can control how it animates in, how it animates during the kind of middle section when it's just on the screen, and how it leaves as well. Now I'm not going to change the in and out for now. I'm going to click on during, and I'm going to turn off the fading and just have none. And so now what's going to happen is that we play the video. On it comes, it's nice and clear, there's no fade in and fade out, and then it goes off the screen. Now just to show you and take this a little bit further, if we come back to that behavior, it could be possible, for example, for the out or the in to work in a different way. So out, for example, at the moment, it's a style sliding, okay? We do have other options. Let's just click on another one to see how it would work. So I'm going to click on fade out. So it's in theory going to come onto the screen now, but it's going to just fade rather than disappear off the screen. And this is what I'm saying about how powerful Camtasia becomes, because you start to realize that you can combine different elements and become very creative. Watch this. Let's just play this video a little bit. On the screen, no fading in and out, but then it fades and disappears, okay? So remember, I turned off the fading in and out while it was on the screen, but there was a fade at the end. And of course, I'm not limited to that. I can always come back again to the behavior, look at the out. We've chosen fade out, but could we do something else? Well, yes, we could, okay? We could, for example, choose to drop. Probably one that I wouldn't do, but let's just watch this again. So let's watch. In it comes, stays on the screen, no fading, and then drops. This is, for me, one of the most interesting things about Camtasia, and it's when you get to a slightly higher level and you're beginning to realize that you can combine different elements together. Okay, really hope you enjoyed this video. If you want the next part of the course, remember you can access the complete playlist below. There's also the option to download Camtasia 2022 for free and use it. And on the screen now, I'm going to add the next part of the course. Thank you very much.